to be breaking down the ending of Fast 10. So at this point in the movie, all of our teams scattered all over the place. We got people in London, we have people in Antarctica, and now we have Dom, with the help of Ames, going to go save his son, who is being chased down by Dante, who used Guide's Eye to find his location, who he's with Uncle Jacob in their secret rendezvous. So this is where we get the setup where Jacob has little B. He shows him his bat cave, essentially, or his peacemaker cave, and he has his Mad Max Fury Road car nephew uncle moment where he's using the missiles to take out the crew, but ultimately one of the missiles gets stuck, and Dante is now in the mix. Dom's now in the mix. We have AIM in the sky helping him out. We'll talk about the reveal here in a second. But as all that's happening, do not want to underplay or miss out on another cool highway action set piece, a la, Fast 7 with the tank and all that stuff, because they kind of do a very similar, or I should say maybe Fast 6 with a mixture of Fast 7, because little B ends up getting captured, getting taken by Dante when he was in the car. Meanwhile, we have Dom ultimately gets his son, because he goes back to the beginning of the film and says, when he talked to him about driving a car, filling out the car, knowing your lines, things of that nature, he tells that to his son over the intercom. He opens the door and they do the Fast 7 when Ramsey had to jump into the car when the God's Eye missile was coming on them. So they do a lot of kind of rehashing of those, great scenes. And it was still a great scene. Dom coming out of the airplane, crashing on two cars again. Part of your brain that says, that would not happen in real life. You got to cut that off, right? So while all of that's happening, it's a great action scene. It's just ridiculous, right? But we talked about that earlier in the breakdown. I appreciate what goes into making these movies and making some of these ridiculous but cool action scenes. While all that's happening, we have the final standoff. At this point, Dom has gotten his son, but they're still being chased by Dante's men. And this is where the ultimate sacrifice comes into play. One of the bigger characters in this film who was redeemed. Talked about it, that Jacob Toretto was the worst part of Fast 9, but he was redeemed in this one because they allowed John Cena to be John Cena. And that is a guy with charisma, channeling his inner peacemaker role. He sacrifices himself. He says, thanks, Dom. I was in the dark for the longest, and now I'm in the light. He's changed his brother. He ultimately sacrificed. Now, he could have jumped out of that car. He could have did what he did, which was essentially flip his car over, use the missiles in his car to explode the rest of Dante's men. He could have jumped out. No, I'm sorry. He could have made it happen. I mean, I've seen Dom do some pretty ridiculous things and make his way out of situations. Jacob is a Toretto. He has that in his blood. He could have figured a way out. Hell, he might not be dead, but assuming he is dead, he is dead. He sacrificed himself. Obviously, Little B's upset because he obviously loved his uncle prior to this film, but really now seeing his uncle in action and having this kind of newfound love for his uncle. And again, I go back to which I talked about at the very beginning of this video, the whole idea of legacy, right? And him, Jacob's legacy, how he wanted to leave on this earth. So it was, again, ties all together. He dies. Meanwhile, Dom is being chased down by Dante. He thinks that he's out of the clear, right? That Dante doesn't have any more to his disposal. Well, surprise, surprise. Dante has another ace in the hole, and that is the reveal that Agent Ames, who replaced Mr. Nobody, was working from him 10 years ago. We go back to the flashback at the beginning of the movie where I think they showed their hands to it because, of course, you say, Ellie, of course, you know this now after seeing the movie. At the beginning of the movie, when we get the flashback of Fast 5 and showing us from a different perspective, you see an enormous gentleman in a blue suit with a blonde hair, and they don't ever show you his face. But of course, we know it's Ames working with, I'd say, the whole film. But I'm like, wait a minute. There's a reason why they're not showing us that guy's face. And also, like I said, this dude is as big as a house. The first time we see Ames, when he's talking to Tess in the facility, what is he wearing? A blue shirt. And of course, the blonde hair, I'm like, sold me. And of course, you can say I'm just saying this because I've seen the film. Now, no, I knew that Ames was going to be working for Dante. And plus, too, these films aren't Shakespeare. They're pretty predictable. When he was talking to Tess about the whole life of Dominic Toretto, how he's able to convert policemen, Hobbs, Brian, Mama, he's able to get these police on his side. Once he said that, I said, well, of course, he's not going to fall for that trope because he's already working for the bad guy. So neither here nor there. Let me know if you guys saw that twist coming. I saw it coming, but I'll play, like, oh, I caught by surprise. And as I talked about, the whole subplot with Luda and Rome and Ramsey and Han, they're making their way to London to the rendezvous. They're in this 757 plane to save the day. Nah. We have Ames with a big old missile. He shoots down the plane, and we see our characters in the plane. Oh no, a missile's coming. And the camera pans out of the airplane, and it shows them crashing into a mountain. I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. There's no way. And now again, for the effect of being shocked, they want the audience, and I'm pretty sure people in my theater were like, oh no, they're dead. Let me tell y'all something. They are not dead. Come Fast 11, probably the beginning of the movie, we're going to see that how many times have these characters flown out of an airplane via a car? It's going to be revealed they are safe and fine. Hey, maybe one of them might die because there are too many of the same characters. Maybe Ramsey or maybe even Luda, maybe Rome, because his whole thing was trying to be a leader. We might see him when they're crashing down. He like gives them the last parachute and he sacrificed himself. Who knows? But I'm pretty confident in saying that none of them are dead. The only people that might have died is the pilots, but they're going to be okay. But again, going back to the Infinity War isms in this movie, the snapping, half of the Avengers, half of the world, half of the planet, half of the universe being blipped. They'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me on that, on top of every other character in this franchise. But putting that aside and playing into they're dead, we are now, everything's crumbling. Again, the whole thing for Dante was, I'm going to make you suffer, and two, I am ready for you to die. Very a la Bane. One of the coolest scenes, two Optimus Prime's trucks crash into each other, and Dom goes down the damn explosion. He looks at him. It is now time for you to die. Again, very much like Bane, but he presses the missile, and he has all these explosives across a dam, and you're to assume that the water's going to come down and drown them out. No, because they're going to be saved by Luda and Rome and all of them. But again, a cliffhanger. We're left to think that they might die. ... So now that brings us to the last scene of the movie, and that brings us back to what's going on with Letty Cypher. They break out of the jail. They got their coats on, and she's like, I told you I had a good plan. You should follow through with me, right? In comes the submarine, pops out of the submarine, and it's been rumored for a while that Gal Gadot was going to return, because I come from the old school of, if I don't see a body, ain't nobody dead. And ladies and gentlemen, unless she has a twin sister, because it's all about family, but assuming this is Giselle, she's back. And going back to my question I had earlier about what did Tess put in her arm and her shoulder when she stabbed her, whether it's a tracking device, whether it's something of that nature, regardless of the point is, I would imagine that Tess and Cypher and Giselle are all working together. I don't know how, again, we know this franchise likes to make the villains good guys eventually. I don't know what happened between Fast 9. Well, of course, we know that Mr. Nobody and their agency, they recruit criminals, right? We know that from Fast 7, right? Yeah, recruited Dom and recruited in 8, he recruited Decker. So they like to work with people that get the job done. So question is, does Tess and Cypher and Giselle, have they been working together? And then the Giselle of it all, where have you been, Wonder Woman? How, again, nobody's dead, but I mean, come on. They were going 200 miles per hour on that runway on the plane, and she went back, maybe she landed on a car like Dom did with Letty in Fast 6. Who knows? But she's here now. Again, Han died. He's back. And then now, Letty died, she's back, and go ahead and add Giselle to that batch. That is the last scene in the movie. We are in a renaissance of cliffhangers. Infinity War ends Endgame 1 year later. Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2, 2 years later. Mission Impossible 7 into 8, Part 1 of Part 2, Across the Spider-Verse, Beyond the Spider-Verse. What's going on in Hollywood? Where are all these Part 1s coming from? But either way, Part 2 of this film is coming out. It's slated for 2025, but of course we know there's a WGA strike right now, so that might even be pushed back further. But let's pivot over to another discussion, and that is, what next with this franchise? We all know this is a Part 1 of a Part 2 of a potentially Part 3. Vin Diesel, red carpet, last week at the premiere. Studio came to him. We love Part 1. We're excited for Part 2. Vinny, please give us a Part 3. We'll see. Box office will dictate if we get a Part 3 of this finale, and then it'll be a Part 4 and a 5. We'll see. But assuming that we're just talking about the next film. So as it lays right now, 2025 is the release date. Might be pending WGA writing. Here's my thing as far as it would have been, again, putting aside that they didn't shoot 10 and 11 back to back, the vacancy in 2024. There is again, I mentioned Infinity War and Endgame, 1 year layover. Across the Spider-Verse, Into the or Beyond the Spider-Verse, 1 year over. Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning, into, Dead Reckoning. I don't know what the subtitle is for part 2, but it's 1 year after. It's a 2-year gap between part 10 and part 11. There should be, I'm not saying you do have to, because Dune came out in 2021 and part 2's come out in 2023, 2 years later. You can make it happen. It's not impossible to get a part 2 2 years later, but I feel like they should squeeze something into next year. Obviously, it's impossible. Well, I won't say impossible, but with the WGA strike, it's going to be hard to make a movie, shoot a movie right now. And this is just the fan in me, and this is just, it would have been the business decision. I know Rock had a million things to do, but Hobbs and Shaw was pretty successful. If I was The Rock, I know he's making a movie as like Santa Claus. I know he made Black Adam. I know he's probably got 19 million different projects he's doing, working on Netflix, Red Notice Part 2. Why wasn't Hobbs and Shaw 2 a top priority? This movie almost damn near made $800 million. It made more than like Fast 6 and I think Fast 7, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not Fast 7, because I think that made $1 billion. But I think it made more than Fast 6. Either way, it was very profitable, right? It was very profitable for the studio and profitable for The Rock and Jason Statham. Why wasn't the sequel like top priority? Because to me, again, hindsight's 2020, you have part 1 of Fast 10 come out, Hobbs and Shaw 2, which could have played into Deckard saving his mom, Hobbs saving his daughter. They need both of them to help save their families, and then tie that into Fast 11. That would have been a great kind of, I don't want to say filler because it's its own movie, but it ties all together to this universe they created. So again, I don't think anything's been announced that there's going to be anything Fast related come 2024. And then, of course, we know we're going to have 2025. Well, assuming that everything will work out with the writer's strike, 2025, it will come out probably around the same time, May or the summer of that year. So that is the Hobbs and Shaw of it all. Let me know what you all think about that. But as far as Fast 11, it's safe to assume that the cliffhanger, Dom, Little B, will probably be saved by the dead crew coming in to save them. And then we're going to see the team very a la Infinity War, Endgame, all come together. I'm talking Brian coming back, Giselle's now back, Hobbs is back. Just from previous Fast films, Sean from Tokyo Drift, who appeared in Fast 9, like all the characters that are alive or dead will be coming together to take on Dante, Ames, and I'm pretty confident that there is another big bad out there, and more so from the spinoff of Hobbs and Shaw, that there was a bigger bad, that Idris Elba had someone that he was below, which I've always thought was going to be like Keanu Reeves. David Lynch being the director of that film, and also David Lynch having a good relationship with Keanu Reeves. So I always imagine that the big bad doing all the cyber stuff, someone that, Cypher worked for, Dante knows about, Ames knows about, and he's like been controlling all this stuff the whole time. The real big Thanos of it all is like a Keanu. I'm saying Keanu Reeves, that's who I want to be the villain, but I think there will be another bigger villain that's going to be set up for Hobbs and Shaw 2 and Fast 11 into potentially now sounds like Fast 12. So that's what I'm thinking. And we already lost Jacob. We think we lost the other crew, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, Dominic Toretto is going to end up dying. We're going to probably see that. If they do make a 12, not an 11, probably a 12. But if 11 is the last one, Dom will probably die. But overall, again, I personally enjoyed Fast 10. It was a huge improvement for Fast 9. Again, I'm going to have a video ranking the individual films, but let's just give you a preview here. It falls in line with me with like Fast 7 and 6, kind of in that range. And again, I'll have a short video going over my ranking, so keep an eye out for that. So thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed yourself like I did, consider hitting the like button, sharing today's video, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel where we do other spoiler discussions, live streams, we do movie reviews very daily, we do short form content, long form content, after shows, and all that fun stuff. So consider subscribing to the channel. You all have been awesome. Make sure that if you are driving a car, you're not driving crazy like these characters, and you all be safe out there. I appreciate you. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my non-spoiler review for this film. Check out my other reviews for this year thus far, and we'll catch you all on the next video.